What is happening? Welcome to another episode of the On the Corner podcast. I am your host, Nick Pollock. And joining me today is Jake Crumpler. Oh, Jake, it's so good to see you.
You too. Yeah, I just saw you like a week
Yeah,
ago.
I know it's pretty great. I've actually seen Jake a couple times this year. I also saw you in San Francisco when
That's right.
and I did our live The Craft podcast in San Francisco. And yeah, you also work for Baseball HQ. So, of
Mhm.
course, you're there at First Pitch Arizona. And
Yes.
you're a pitcher list. You do In the Pen with Rick
Mhm.
Graham. You also do reliever ranks. And you just finished doing the reliever rankings for Lindy's Fantasy Baseball magazine for 2025. Congratulations with that.
Thank
And
you.
you
Thank
must be
you.
relieved to be done with it.
That is a great pun to say relieved after I did all those reliever
That
rankings.
was subconscious, and I am not that clever. I am
That's
just
why you're the
stumble
greatest.
into genius. That's me. Hi. But no, you must be feeling good after getting that done for the year.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. I was so stressed out about it, and I'm such a huge procrastinator that while I wasn't doing it, of course I'm thinking about it the whole time. So it took all the way up until the
Yeah.
last weekend where I locked in. I was up till 4:30 Saturday night and Sunday night, and then had to go to
Look at
work on
you.
Monday. But I survived. I got
You
it
did
done.
it. Nicely done. And this is actually a product of ADHD. You can't actually do anything else. It just sits there, but then you don't get the dopamine hit of doing the work. So you can't do it, but then you can't do anything else. It's a terrible, terrible cycle. And I still kind of go through it, but at least I'm much better at it now. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. No,
No.
we are going to talk about that we're live streaming this on YouTube. You should go subscribe to the On the Corner podcast YouTube channel where you can catch all of these episodes on video. Way better, so much better than just listening to the audio. You can also just listen to audio there too. It's all good, but you go subscribe to that. And we are going to talk about your mock draft. You can check it out in the description of the podcast here. That we have a pitcher list staff mock for all the podcasters, and it's 12 team mixed Yahoo, 23 roster spots with 2 utility, I believe 5 bench spots, 3 outfielders, no middle infield, no corner infield, 2 different Otanis, blah, blah, blah. Y'all know the deal, the most casual league, but there isn't an ADP for this, and we're trying to establish it because you can't use NFBC. No, those are draft and holds, and it's not
Mhm.
what you're going to deal with. A lot of them are also 15 team leagues. It's going to weigh the ADP, I guarantee you, and it shouldn't. So hopefully this one is a more pure one for you and your leagues, your 12 teamers. So Jake, you had the 10th pick in this draft. And as I ask everyone, I have a few questions. One, did you want to have the 10th pick? 2, was there a specific strategy that you had in the 10th slot as opposed to, say, the 3rd slot? And 3, did you have just a general strategy of I'm going to go hitters, I'm going to go pitchers, I'm going to tackle these positions at certain points? Talk to me about all of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say I chose 10. I think I was down to 2 or 3 options. So I just went with the one that felt the best. So 10 was what was available. And I went with that. I think that was the closest to the top of the round. So it would give me a better shot at a
Mm,
better player in the first round. And I was okay with being that close to the turn, knowing that I would get an equally good player in the second round.
yeah.
Generally, I like to go into drafts in this format targeting non-infielders because the positional scarcity is a lot lower in these leagues. The waiver
Mm,
wire has a lot more players in terms of the infield because there are fewer infield spots. When you're not playing middle infield or corner infield, there's a lot more guys to choose from. Unfortunately, because I didn't have ADP going into this, did not follow that strategy. Immediately, first 3 rounds went infielders, which is exactly against what I would like to do. But I think that was a case of me taking the best player available at that point in the
sure.
draft.
So I will say that makes sense. In general, but oh yeah, right. Of course, you're gonna have more opportunities, and without the middle infield stuff, you're gonna have more options. And yet, we've talked to a couple other people, and they've noted second base really falls off. First base does. There's a clear cliff after the
Mm-hmm.
first 6 rounds. Same
Mm-hmm.
with third base, even and shortstop. Like all of the infield positions specifically, there are larger gaps than we are used to seeing. There's usually a few of them. It's like, oh no, shortstop is really deep, and we can really go after some really good ones later. Or first base, there's a ton of them. It's not really the case. Outfield generally has the most value, especially considering it's only 3 outfielders, which means 36 for 12 teams. I mean, 36 outfielders. Are you kidding me? That's there. There are so many more to go around. Of course, you have 2 util spots to fill as well, but you generally can fill in that outfield spot easier than any other position in season. But I really like the start of your draft because it was shortstop, first baseman, third baseman. You went a pair of juniors in there too. And the first one was Francisco Lindor in the first round. How do you put Lindor relative to others? Did you feel it was the end of a tier of hitters, or did you feel that any of these guys from Lindor, Betts, Julio Rodriguez, Jordan Alvarez, Lindor, Guerrero Jr., Freeman are all kind of the same vein?
I really prefer safety in the first round.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as safe as people like Mookie Betts and Jordan are on a per game basis, their lack of staying on the field definitely gives me some concern, especially with Jordan. But Mookie, I don't know. I looked at his numbers and compared him to Lindor, and it just felt like the trajectory of Lindor's career felt more safe in terms than
Mhm.
Mookie's, who dealt with injuries last year, and when he was on the field was not at the top of his game. I do still think Mookie's one of the best players of all time, so I wouldn't expect him to not be first round value. But what Lindor's been doing the past couple of years is really good, and he remains really underrated. But basically, back to back 30-30 seasons where he's batting, 255 to 275. That's hard to beat, especially in the middle of an order that's likely to get better this offseason. I felt really good about his run production numbers as well.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really hard to pass on Lindor at this point because you already had three shortstops go. You had Witt Jr., De La
Mm-hmm.
Cruz, and Henderson in the first round, and then it's Lindor, Trey Turner, Corey Seager, Willie Adames. Those are the next shortstop, and it's clear that Lindor is the last one of the
Mm-hmm.
elites in that view. So I totally understand going after Lindor. It makes all the sense to me, really. I would say second round too, Vlad Jr. A lot of people might not have realized that Vladdy had himself a redemption year and is absolutely adored by Process Plus. You must love this pick.
Yeah, this one was difficult for me because Freddie Freeman was still available. He went with the next pick. So that was the debate for me, Freddie Freeman or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And of course, Freeman is much more consistent. I wouldn't say he has a higher ceiling, but what he's done throughout his career, especially since joining the Dodgers, is insane. But Vlad's ceiling is so incredible. And I thought 2023 was more of an indication of what we might see moving forward. And it was really mid to me, his 2023 batting 265 with 26 homers. I didn't find much to like in that. So last year I was not in on Vlad at all. But after seeing him turn things around this year and not really change that much about his game, his ground ball percentage went up, which is the biggest thing with Vladdy is the ground balls. Are they going to hold him
Yeah.
back? And he hit more ground balls and yet still had a 323 batting average and 30 homers. The BABIP is definitely a big factor there, but I still think he's such a consistent contributor of producing like a 280 batting average and 25 plus home runs. And he plays every day. He never misses any games. He's played at least 156 games for each of the past 4 seasons. So I really felt good about that. And on top of that, Freddie Freeman plays for the Dodgers, and I am
Oh, you
not a
are a
Dodgers
Giants
fan.
fan, and we're gonna see that maybe with a pick or two
That's right.
from you. Your expression of fandom.
Mhm.
Now we did not have Process Plus in 2023. This is a thing that Kyle Bland just kind of dropped randomly on Twitter in July or so, and I didn't even know it was coming out. I go, what? You're supposed to tell me these things. And it's so great and so cool. But if you saw Vlad Jr.'s Process Plus in 2023, you have seen 140 pretty much consistently through the year with power leading the way. Obviously, some of that is in the ground, but
Mhm.
I mean, crushing the ball. And it did get really bad for Vlad Jr. by the end of the season. So September, it really fell off as far as the power went. Process Plus was down to 110 in 2023 by the end. But this past year, he just kept it up there at 140 and above, actually going up to 160 to 180 by the end of the year, which is bonkers to say the least. And it doesn't surprise, right? It's not like Vlad Jr. is just something brand new and, oh, he's not supposed to do this. We say, oh, yeah, no, seems about right. It's going to be a contract year for Vlad Jr.
That too.
And we wonder if the Jays are going to move on from him or are they going to sign
Mhm.
him an extension. You got to think it's an extension for Vlad Jr. The Jays would be silly. This is the franchise player, and you really should be building around a guy like Vlad Jr. But you don't know. You don't know if they feel like they can compete that heavily and really invest with it. And they would get a pretty penny at the winter meetings if Vlad Jr. did go to another team for a year.
Mhm.
That might be a way for them to get their rebuild going or really jumpstart their organization, because with Bo Bichette going down, with their pitching not really exceeding expectations as they wanted to, or excelling, it does seem as if they need to jumpstart it, but we'll see. Either way, Vlad is going to do well in all likelihood once again. I think I'm going to favor Freddie just because the floor is slightly higher.
Yeah.
But you can't go wrong with Vlad Jr. I think it is 1-2 there, likely with Harper as 3. Going into the third round, it's another junior, as I hinted at. It's Jazz Chisholm Jr. And that might surprise some of you, because Jazz, well, it's not really the most overwhelming season. However, 256 average and 24 home runs, 74 runs, 73 RBI. Oh, yeah, and 40 stolen bases. And that's at your, I mean, third base position. I don't think it's going to be second, but then again, it could be in season, as it's a possibility that Jazz moves to second to cover the Gleyber Torres hole for the Yankees. He could stay at third. We don't really know what they're doing. Why did you go for Jazz Chisholm here? You could have gone to Austin Riley.
Yeah, I think it was more of the speed factor there. After drafting Vlad, I had felt that, they were sort of polar opposites from Lindor in terms of speed, where you're not getting anything from Vladdy, but you're getting a ton from Lindor. So I sort of wanted to lock in speed, even though I know now, but I didn't know then how easy it was to get speed later. I'm so
Yeah.
used to having drafted over the past few years and knowing, hey, here's a guy who can hit 25 homers and steal 40 bases. That's difficult to find. And even with that being said, there was still so much more steals to find later in the draft, which I did not realize. And now I've learned a lot from that. But that was a big factor for me, was the power speed combination. And on top of that, I really like Jazz. I predicted him to be the National League MVP in 2023. That did not work. But also he's got the dual eligibility as well. He hit really well with the Yankees. He batted 273 with the Yankees, 132 WRC plus, just a huge improvement. Not necessarily saying they did anything, but I think maybe the environment is big for him, playing on a team that's competitive compared to the Marlins. And on top of that, now he's got the short porch in right field for a whole season. That seems pretty nice for his power production for a guy who increased his slugging by nearly 100 points after going to the Yankees.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jazz too. Snarky Puppy is a great band. Larnell Lewis, you might have seen him learn Enter Sandman on Drumeo for the first time. That's the best video. If you haven't seen that video, it's amazing. But anyway, Duke Silver, as I call Jazz Chisholm, it's gonna be a great situation for him next year in New York. You have to think that it's going to be infectious for him there. It's going to be a fun time. And third round for a potential second baseman makes sense to me. I would likely put someone like Brent Rooker ahead of Jazz Chisholm. I would not really favor stolen bases, as you know. Also, watching these panels in First Pitch Arizona, you and I both know that stolen bases are easier to find than home runs now. So chasing stolen bases, especially in a 5x5 categories league, where it's a 1-win, is not as important as it's 10%, and you can still win the week without getting those stolen bases. My whole viewpoint is to give yourself a 60-40 chance where you're the 40, as opposed to being the 60, because it's sure you'll win only 40% out of 10, but that's close to a coin flip. And I'd rather take that and have a more definitive lead in home runs and RBI, which are, you need to have more volume in, and there's more opportunity to widen the gap. The stolen bases, it might be like my 5 to your 4 in a week. It's just, okay, cool. As opposed to like, no, I need to get 35 RBI because they're going to get 27 or so, and I need to define that gap a lot more. But yeah, it's a solid pick. I totally understand. I think you'll see this a lot. Third, fourth, fifth round, Jazz Chisholm in your leagues. And then next is a guy named Cole Reagans. My gosh, look at you. You took Cole Reagans 6th of all starting pitchers. I would not have done this.
I didn't have your rankings yet.
Well, that's on you. I'm not the one that tells you what to do.
You're not, but I do trust your opinion a lot.
So did you think that I was going to have Cole Reagans 6th?
No, but I saw the guys there and I was like, I love Cole Reagans.
Yeah, so why do you have Cole Reagans here above, say, Gerrit Cole?
I had not done enough research on Gerrit Cole heading into the draft. I learned a lot about him at First Pitch Arizona. You guys talked about him a lot, and so did other people. And, I think a lot of my opinion of him was skewed by his second half, which, not his fault that he was being limited, but just the presence of him being on the White Sox and, an uncertainty regarding what his workload is going to be next year. And Reagan's having taken such a huge step and established himself as like a legit ace, one of the best in baseball, on a team that made the playoffs last year. And this is a guy that I think still has even more room to grow. I mean, I know how much you talked him up in the preseason last year, but a lot of the stuff you talked about, he didn't even do this year. Like he
No, he was
lost.
worse.
Yeah, he was worse, which suggests that he can be better next year. And he was so good last year.
That's true. Yeah, I think that Cole Reagan's is more hittable than I want him to be.
Uh-huh.
And the slider and cutter really took a step back with consistency. We also saw in the second half, Reagan's insists that it wasn't arm, it was lower half mechanics. So it does make me feel as if next year the velocity will return as opposed to seeing the 94, 95 that we saw at the end of the year. But I mean, I don't know how much stock we should put into that. A pitcher is always going to tell you there's a reason for it that will get fixed, and it's really hard to take them at their word for that. I want to believe it. But at least I feel confident that's not an arm injury. And I think the biggest lesson to learn about Cole Reagan's is when you see a guy perform at a certain level, lean into it. It's kind of like the Corbin Burns thing of when Corbin Burns performed so well for 10 straight starts to end the year in 2020. And we were like, yeah, but the 2019 was so bad. He was amazing in 2021. So he just kept going as he did. And yeah, the 2 Tommy John thing, like that was 1.5. Everyone was so worried about it, the workload. And I was like, no. So just remember that. But at the same time, I think that Cole Reagans is going to have some ebbs and flows. He's not going to be a 105 whip guy. He's going to allow hits. He's going to allow some walks at times because he doesn't give in as much. He doesn't hit the zone exactly what he wants with non-fastballs all the time. So that has me having him around like 11, 12 or so, something like that. Well, Gerrit Cole is just like, Gerrit Cole is the best. I mean, I almost like put him at 1. I'm not even kidding. I know that sounds crazy.
It does.
I know Tarek Scuba just did so well, but I don't think y'all understand how easy it is for Gerrit Cole.
Dude, he surprised me so much last year. I did not expect anywhere close to what he did.
No, me too. I really failed everybody because I saw the first start and I thought, well, is he going to do this against the Atlanta next? Like, I don't want to sign up for that because I don't think I'm going to start him for his next start. That's 10 days I got to wait. And I messed up on that. I should have been better at understanding why he had that success against the Tigers in that first game. And it was extension. Ta-da! He didn't have his cutter yet, to be fair. But
yeah,
to be fair. But anyway, Gerrit Cole, it's so easy because he just throws fastballs that are stupid unhittable and then a cutter that's stupid unhittable. And now he has a sinker that is stupid unhittable. And it's like he doesn't need to do anything special. He just needs to exist and throw strikes. And he's got it. It's over. It's done.
totally.
And like Scuba's like, hey, I got to throw like a really good changeup here. I can't, my fastball doesn't miss bats enough. Okay, fine. Like Reagan's like, okay, is my slider gone? Is my cutter going to save me today? I don't know. Gerrit Cole's like, yo, what's up? Boom. What's up? Boom. Sorry. That's it. Anyway, we're moving on to the fifth round after you got your guy Reagan's. I do want to ask, were you planning on getting a starting pitcher in the 4th round, or were you just like, you know what? I'm just going to take Cole Reagan's here because he's right here. I don't really like anyone else.
Yeah, I was sort of scared when my next pick might come. I wasn't worried. I was worried that there might not be an ace level starter left. Little did I know how many ace level starters there are. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, would you consider Shane McClanahan an ace level starter?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is I didn't realize how deep pitching was because I was so conditioned by last year's dearth of pitching that I was like, okay, I can wait 3 rounds, but I'm not going to wait with everybody.
There was no dearth. The dearth did not exist.
It felt like it.
Anytime it feels like it, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. No. So we're gonna talk about your 5th round pick, and we're gonna do that after this break. Look, 5th round is Christian Yelich, and I'll be honest, pretty great. I know that he was limited, of course, due to his back. He's saying, look, this surgery is the surgery that I need to be A-okay now. And by game, he was killing it. You just expect peak Yelich next year, don't you?
Well, peak is that's another level. Remember when he went 44-30 with a 329 batting average. Now
Yeah.
that's
Okay. A
something.
near peak.
Yes. I the level that he was playing at last year and even the year previous, I mean, not even close to what he was doing right at his peak, but still really valuable and I think underrated, especially for a guy that if he can play the whole year, he's going to be batting first, second, or third. He's going to get tons of runs in RBI. But last year, batted 315 with 11 homers and 21 steals in just 73 games. You multiply that by 22,
Boom.
42, batting over 300. You can't find that in the fifth round.
Quick maths.
That's
Done.
right.
Yeah, I mean, the average is going to help. The stolen bases are going to help. And you're not going to suffer from home runs, probably.
Correct.
Whoa. That's actually really, really good for the fifth round. And guess what? That deserves the seal of approval.
No, let's go.
I mean, I'm finding myself getting much more of Yelich hype just because I see the fourth round a bit. I took William Contreras because I didn't really know who to go for. And when I don't really know who to go for, I say, okay, cool, this is when I'm going to take a catcher if I feel like there's a definitive one. I didn't really want to go for Schwarber because I feel at some point this whole like, hey, I'm going to hit 35 to 40 home runs, but have like a 200 average shtick is going to end at some point. And it could just be this year, could be next. I don't know. It could be never. But I don't want to be the one caught holding the stick. Wyatt Langford is exciting, but at the same time, it's still a little risky. Teoscar Hernandez, I do like. I think he's great. It's just there's something about the volatility of contact for him that is a little scary. Michael Harris, you're hoping for. Brian Reynolds is solid, but not like that absurd stud. Trout is hurt. I'm taking a little bit of a chance on Riley Green, but I really like him. But then I see like Christian Yelich. I'm like, oh, but that should be really great quality per game, and seems like he's actually going to be healthy for the first time in ages.
Yep.
So no, I'm a big fan of this. I would probably go after him instead of my William Contreras pick in the fourth round if I could redo this. So seal of approval there. Sixth round, you're like, okay, I can't get aces later. Well, here's another situation where you're going after a starter, and you've got Jacob deGrom on the board, Shohei Ohtani, Shane McClanahan, Pablo Lopez, Luis Castillo, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and you went with Gerrit Cole as I want to say the 12th starter off the board, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it looks like. Yeah. How'd you feel about Gerrit Cole here? Did it feel like you were choosing between a couple guys? Did you not want to wait until others were on the board? Talk to me about this.
I considered Cole where I took Reagan's. And I guess I took a Cole there too, so maybe I was just confused.
Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, I was really excited to see him that late in the draft. I mean, there were still so many good pitchers on the board as you just read them all off, all the guys that went afterwards. But Cole is the type of guy that can finish SP number 1. Maybe not at his age. Maybe he doesn't still have that in him at 34. But coming off a year in which he, dealt with injuries and wasn't really at his peak on the field, he's the type of guy that I feel is going to grind really hard this offseason and come back next year looking incredible, especially with the Yankees having just missed out on a World Series trophy. I feel like he's going to be really motivated to go out there and work really hard. And on top of that, yes. And on top of that, he just signed that or re-signed his I don't even know his contract. So I feel like there's another level of sort of pressure there that I think it's going to be good for him. In the same way as when he first got to New York and, he had so much pressure to perform there after having signed such a big deal. And I feel like he finally lived up to that when he won the Cy Young in 2023. And, last year was unfortunate. So I feel like he's going to come back really strong, but there's something about his history of success. And I think the entire industry's shift away from being scared of old starters, just having seen somebody like Justin Verlander come back from Tommy John surgery and win a Cy Young at 39, that sort of changed my mind on, oh man, this guy's going to be 34. It's time to drop him. It's like, This is Gerrit Cole. This is a future Hall of Famer. I'm going to draft him now because I know even if he's not that great, even if he's not peak Gerrit Cole, he's still at least like a 27% strikeout rate and a 3.5 ERA on a winning team, which gives you double-digit wins, and I'll take that all day.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Of Cole's floor being still excellent, you're not going to drop him the entire year.
Yeah.
The biggest worry I had about Gerrit Cole next year is that the slider really disappeared this year for him, and he had to turn to more cutters and more knuckle curves instead. I don't think that's the Cole that we know. It's still an effective one, but it's not the overbearing, confident, he's going to get this guy out. He can, doesn't matter. Just send him out there for 100 pitches. Don't ever take him out kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that worries me a little bit. I don't think it gets better. If anything, it's worse. But you're right. That floor is very, very good. And looking at the others, it's arguably a better floor than anyone else on the board there. And I mean, I have him at, I think, 15, something along those lines. I have Sasaki and Glasnow ahead of him. Now that the news came out about Glasnow's elbow being fully healed, or right there, essentially just going to be fine for opening day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Sasaki getting posted. So those two jumped ahead of Gerrit Cole for me. But yeah, I understand this completely. I do want to mention again, as I do every single time with these. Hey, everyone.
What's
The
that? You just said
pitchers.
Glasnow?
Oh, I know. I saw it. I know. You got them later. Everybody listen here. Pitchers aren't necessarily going to go in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round as they did in this draft. This is a pitcherless staff league, and we generally do have the same opinion of chasing starters later and hitters early. Even Chad Young, who took Chris Sale, Logan Gilbert, Dylan Cease, if you listen to that one, he kind of wanted to switch one of those out as well. It's just one of those things where we value hitters more than pitchers early, because we think that hitters have a bigger value gap relative to the later rounds. While there are just so many productive pitchers, it doesn't need to be some of those top 15 guys. You'll find that a lot of them, the pitchers inside the top 50, are going to be incredibly beneficial for your team this season. So moving on to the 7th round, it's Stephen Kwan. Talk to me about this Stephen Kwan pick.
Yes, I like Stephen Kwan as a person. He actually played baseball, I don't know, probably against my college roommate. Well, I failed out after a semester, so we weren't roommates for that long. But
you failed out of college?
And then I went back and I got a degree from a better school.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
Yes,
congrats, Jake.
Thank you. But yeah, so he played against Stephen Kwan, so that already did a little for me. But he is just so good. And he's just he's the Luis Arias that we want Luis Arias to be. I mean, Luis Arias is like consistently batting 330, right? But we're always like, oh, if only Luis Arias could contribute in any other category that doesn't just come with being on base a lot, like runs and RBI. He's not contributing home runs or stolen bases. And the same could have been said for Kwan for the last 2 years, combined for 11 home runs in his first 2 seasons. The steals were there. He averaged 20 across those 2 seasons. But last year, 14 home runs after combining for 11 in his first 2 years. That's a new level. And then you want to look into, well, how did he do that? Is he deserving of a higher home run total? Doubled his barrel rate by more than doubled his barrel rate. His expected slugging is way up. I think he hit more fly balls. He hit fewer ground balls. I think it was a clear indication that he was attempting to hit for more power and not necessarily change his whole game. The guy still walked more than he struck out, which is my favorite thing about a player. Like if I were to choose one thing that if I see this in a player, they're my favorite player, it's walking more than you're striking out. I've always loved Carlos Santana. He doesn't do it anymore, but that is a thing that I love.
You're always just bringing back jazz. Okay.
Yes.
Carlos Santana and jazz. All right. I do want to mention 100 percentile Z contact and 99th percentile.
He's crazy.
K-rate. I don't really talk about Z contact. I swear I'm not. I'm not just quoting Z contact for everyone. It's just right there in front of me. But 96% is kind of unreal.
Yeah, he doesn't miss.
He don't miss.
Exactly.
So he always comes for the king. And it's a 9th percentile barrel rate, to be fair, but he makes so much contact. It's safe. It is a safe, productive play. I do question if that's worth a 7th round pick.
I do too.
because this was 122 games, 540 plate appearances for 14 home runs and 12 stolen bases and 44 RBI. And yes, average actually helps more so than others because it's so many balls in play, which means that you're going to get more hits, which are more beneficial than your standard average with a higher walk rate. However, and yeah, 83 runs as well. You're going to get runs with Steven Kwan, but not really being a massive producer in home run and RBI does ding a bit. And you didn't really need average, I don't think. With Guerrero and Yelich already there, I would have thought you would have gone for someone more like, let's see, I don't know. Well, the hitters have certainly gotten worse.
Yes.
And maybe taking a swing at Lawrence Butler or Luis Robert Jr. I might have gone that direction if you were really going for it. But I look at it like the hitters have already kind of dried up. Kind of really emphasizes why taking earlier starters might not be the way to go. Do you have second guesses or second thoughts about this pick?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with the lack of ADP, right? We're using the draft software that we were using, and I had no idea where they were getting their list of players from in the order that they had it, but it felt like a mid-season update or something. So it was really hard to determine who can I wait on? Who should I be grabbing now? Like when is Luis Robert Jr. going to go? When is a breakout like Lawrence Butler going to go? I had no clue. And Steven Kwan was somebody that I felt was a reliable, I don't like to use the word commodity. He was a reliable player that I liked because I knew what I was going to get. Right. You look at Steven Kwan, you're like, I know exactly what you're going to do for me next year. And that's there's something peaceful about drafting somebody like that, because you know what to expect. You're not going to be surprised by something he does. Like, he's not going to go out there and bat. You have to be careful because I could have said 260 and he batted 260 last year. He's not going to go out and bat 200.
This is on video. Okay. We got receipts.
He's not going to go out there and bat 200 with 30 home runs, right? It's like we know generally about what I'm going to get from him. So with him on my squad, now I know what I can look for later. So even if there is more power available now, getting Kwan, now I have less need to worry about batting average and runs. Now I can focus on home runs and RBIs, which maybe should be switched around. In strategy wise, do the home runs and RBI first, and then now that I know I can get average and stolen bases so much easy later. But at the moment, I was like, okay, I know Steven Kwan. That's my boy. Sure. Let's get him on my team.
There you go. I prefer Michelle Kwan personally, and that will always be in my head how she performed Pocahontas on skates. And it was, I just remember this. I'm so sorry. Okay. I dated myself. You were not born. Maybe you were. I don't know. You youngin'. All right. We've got Tyler Glasnow, as we hinted at before, in the 8th round. And we didn't know the status of his elbow at the time of this. And I saw Tyler Glasnow go, oh man, like I wouldn't do that because I didn't think that he was going to be starting the year on the team. But now it's been cleared up. And yes, 125 innings or so, followed by 130, 35 or so this past year. Not really the showcase of durability. That said, the quality of inning for Glasnow is too good. And I have to think you're taking this knowing about the replacement value as well in a 12-teamer.
That's correct. Yeah, I knew that getting Glasnow, even if he's not pitching, I can throw him on my injured list, especially in Yahoo, where you got plenty of room on your IL. Exactly. And as we spoke about at the top, this type of league lends itself to a very deep waiver wire. And of course, I would be competing with yourself and other very smart people who are going to steal all the starters before I get to them. But nonetheless, even when Tyler Glasnow inevitably goes on the IL, I'm going to have so many options to go turn to. And on top of that, I drafted Gerrit Cole and Cole Reagans, which volume-wise, I feel like makes up for whatever Cole was doing. If I have two guys that are guaranteed almost 180 innings, I can afford to take Glasnow as my number 3 starter for 125 innings. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's that kind of conversation. I hear that a lot too, is saying, well, this guy's a volume guy. He's going to get me innings. This guy's not. But what we're just saying is, I don't know, like it's Glasnow plus someone else who's going to get comparable-ish innings. Yes, on a per start basis, Cole Reagans are going to be Gerrit Reagans are going to be more more innings per start. Sure. So let's say you get Gerrit Cole, you get a combination of 180 and whatever it is of Glasnow plus the replacement is more like 165, 170. But that replacement isn't necessarily the worst thing ever. And matter of fact, you might actually get more innings because you might have to swap that spot a bit.
Mhm.
So think about the gap of quality between Glasnow and Reagans or Gerrit Cole, and then think, okay, how much confidence do I have in finding a replacement that's going to actually be effective? And sometimes you're going to absolutely win with this. I talked about it the other day with picking Strider, where if you have him on the IL for 2 months or so, but then you get really confident you're going to get 125 of just amazing innings, you can make an argument that you'd actually want that over Tyler Glasnow because at least you get that roster spot choice in the beginning of the season where there's higher potential for a huge impact waiver ad like Flaherty, Jerry Jones, Luis Heel, a lot of those that we picked up early in the season. While as Glasnow, it might be midseason where there are you got to just kind of wait for this thing to happen. That said, rather have Glasnow because Strider is just a
Yep.
don't know. We hope so and hope it's going to be fine. While Glasnow is a much clearer showcase of like, yeah, this is what he's going to get from the beginning, and it might be longer than we expect too, which might be really nice. You don't always know coming back from Tommy John that's 100% fine, but you kind of should expect it. All right, especially if they have a bullpen beforehand, like Sandy Alcantara throwing 99 in early September.
Yes.
Heliot Ramos, talking about your San Francisco guys in the 9th round. Oh boy, tell me about him.
He's so good.
Is he?
We've been waiting for a long time for him to get his chance, and it really felt like he might, lose his abilities before he got his chance. And what I mean by that is he was having so much success in the minors, but his lack of success in the majors was sort of bleeding into his minor leagues success because he would get called up, not play. When he did play, he wouldn't be good because he's not getting enough chances. They'd send him back down, and now his morale is low. So now he doesn't play as well. So there was that sort of, oh man, are they going to mismanage him so much so that he never attains his potential? But Giants always have outfield problems, so there was plenty of room this year for him to sneak in there and get a full-time role. And he ended up playing 121 games and batted .269 with 22 homers. Nothing super crazy, but then you look at his StatCast metrics and you start to see why I love him so much. 14.5% barrel rate, a 47.5% hard hit rate. He actually underperformed in the slugging department according to expected slug. And I don't even think that his 329 BABIP is that obscene. I feel like that could be around 310 for a guy that hits the ball as hard as he does and isn't slow. He did have 6 stolen bases. So across a full season, if the batting average continues to fall because maybe his 26% strikeout rate is a little too high or there's an adjustment next year, he's a guy that bats maybe 250, but that is 35 plus home run power. Even if you're playing in San Francisco, we haven't seen somebody hit 30 home runs since Barry Bonds retired. So I think Heliot Ramos is that next guy. And the fact that his strikeout rate at 26%, not great, but that's not over 30% where it's a guy that I think is, at risk of batting super close to 200. I really feel like the safety of batting 250 with 30 homers on the Giants every single day with a ceiling that's even higher than that is really good at this point in the round. And I will mention that when I made the pick, Kyle Bland mentioned in the chat said great pick. So you have to keep that in mind too.
Quick question. Did you say a 14.5 barrel rate for
Heliot
Ramos? Are you using the pitcher list stats or are you using Baseball Savant?
That was Fangraphs.
Oh my gosh.
I shouldn't have said that.
Ah! Jake!
I'm sorry.
How could you?
It was open.
Oh my gosh.
What is it on?
13.5% barrel rate. Thank you very
13.5.
much.
Okay, that's still really good.
All right, 94th percentile. But when
it's gone.
I on the podcast.
I unsubscribed. I'm not subscribed to Fangraphs anymore, and I'm telling them it's your fault.
Unbelievable.
13.5% barrel rate. Isn't that what I said?
No, 14, buddy. Yeah, Process Plus loves Heliot Ramos, and the only concern that I have is just that it's a small sample of the first season, 121 games, 518 plate appearances. and we're projecting more in growth of that after a season where, hey, cool, you showed up and had a 94th percentile barrel rate. I want to believe it. Process Plus likes it. I do have my hesitations that it's going to stick around, but yeah, I mean, I'm in. It is going to be hard to find good sure bets at ninth round. I mean, Betts is of course going the first round, but no.
Mhm.
Like Colton Cowser, Adolis Garcia, Cody Bellinger, Nick Castellanos, Josh Lowe, Jerkson Purifar, Randy Rosarena, Tyler O'Neill. These are the guys that are going after. And there wasn't even a single outfield, only one hitter in the 10th round, and that was Salvador Perez. Just to put that in perspective. So I see that he should be around here. I do have some eyebrows raised of like, okay, but is this really who he is? And are we going to believe this? Also having a 26% strikeout rate with a 270 average is also raising some eyebrows for me. But obviously hit ball hard, and that's pretty good. Hit ball hard. Not a lot of contact, and that did get worse to the power numbers by the end of the year. But yeah, hopefully Heliot Ramos takes another step. He will be 25 throughout most of the year next year. We're going to go into the 8th, 9th, 10th round with Jake Crumpler here. And we're going to do that right after this break. Oh, man, I love this pitcher. This is crazy that you can get Bailey Ober in the 10th round. Oh, my gosh. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. I drafted him in a lot of leagues last year. I really like Bailey Ober. I mean, you sold me on him in the offseason, honestly, but he's so tall
He's so
and
tall. All tall
he
people are good people, guys.
that's right. He's so tall and he's good at baseball. But I really liked his stuff last year. Just the completeness of his arsenal. He had that really great run throughout the year. He just feels like such a consistent pitcher, and he feels underrated because he constantly has ERAs that are inflated, and I guess are more in line with his expected ERA estimators. But the ability to strike out, north of 26% of batters while walking less than 7%, I think is pretty dope because he had a 20% strikeout minus walk rate last year, and that's that's elite in my book. So there's something about him having volume last year, proving that his 144 inning sample from 2023 wasn't a fluke. I mean, he hasn't really had a year where he wasn't good. I mean, you can suggest that his rookie year with a 4.19 ERA wasn't that good, but it's like every single year he's so good and the command is there. I think you probably have more specifics than I do, but on top of that, 4th best PLV in baseball.
Yeah, so Bailey Ober had that opening day start. That was the worst.
Oh
Or
God.
I guess it was like
Oh
the
my
second or
gosh.
third game of the year where it was what, like 0.2 innings and 9 earned runs or something
It
against
was
the
so
Royals.
bad.
It was horrible. And he ended the season with a 3.98 ERA. He also had another ridiculous game against Atlanta. That was just like everything was just getting hit out, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then another bad one, not like the worst cataclysmic game ever, but not a good one against the Royals. And that was really all the bad stuff. Now, obviously, guys are going to have, you can't really just cherry pick out the bad starts every year for players. But I think this was more extreme than your typical starter. And no, I do not believe that Bailey Ober is now destined forever to have 3 7+ ERA games every single season. When things go badly as a pitcher, it's not like for Bailey Ober, it just happens to go so much worse for him. Okay, luck of the draw when you don't have your good stuff. And it just was really bad for him in those moments. A couple of bad pitches, and there you go. So the fact that he still had 3.98 ERA and also a near 1 WHIP with a 27% strikeout rate, also because he added the cutter that is far better than the slider he had last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 90th percentile changeup as an extension boy that is a Mr. Fantastic. I call him Bailey Oberizzi because Jake Odorizzi was so good at painting the top of the zone red, and Bailey Ober does the same thing back. It's beautiful. It's exactly what he should do with his extension. It's great. So yeah, you should care about this with Bailey Ober. He's going to be an absolute workhorse for the team. Again, I have him in my top 20. So I'm a huge fan of the seal of approval for Bailey Ober in the 10th round, and it's nuts. That is that is such a good SP2. I mean, I look at this and just go, yeah, I went hitters for 7 straight rounds just because I needed to prove a point that, like, Nick, do not chase, just go 7 rounds without a starter. And just seeing the guys that are available, I mean, I could have gone Yamamoto, Joe Ryan, and Sandy Alcantara, or Max Fried. Could have gone Bailey Ober instead of Joe Ryan. I could have even followed it up after Sandy Alcantara with, say, Justin Steele. I mean, why? That's nuts. Kodai Senga's there, Sonny Gray, Jared Jones, Ryan Pepio.
Yeah.
A phenomenal rotation. And I could have even added to it later if I wanted to. And also have 7 hitters before that cliff that we were just talking about, with hitters just kind of going by the wayside. So, yeah, I love this 10th round Bailey Ober. I don't expect you guys to be able to do this. I think he's more like a 5th, 6th round. And at some point, people are going to be aggressive on pitchers in rounds 3 through 6. I hope they are, because then that means I get better hitters as I go through 7 of them.
That's right.
But yeah, it's a great pick there. And then you went Ryan Walker, 11th round. He finished the season as the closer for the Giants with all of this Camilo Doval drama, as the way I'll put it there. And do you believe that Walker will be the closer for the Giants next year?
I do, and I can tell you why as well.
Why?
Ryan Walker is really good. That's reason number 1. Number 2, Buster Posey just took over president of baseball operations in San Francisco. Everything that he said this offseason has been so old school, traditional, which when you think about old school, traditional, and you apply that to bullpens, that means we got a closer. We announce him on opening day, and he's the closer for the rest of the season. So that's what's going to happen, because Doval went to the minors last year at the end of August. He fixed his control issues. He came back and they just resurfaced again, and he could not locate the ball in the zone. And I think at this point, right, they're not going to put Doval back into the closer role until he's proven himself again. He got a chance to get back up to the majors by proving himself, but then he needed to do it again in the majors if he wanted to get that closer role. It would be a different conversation if Ryan Walker was a mid reliever. Ryan Walker is not a mid reliever, though. Last year, 32% strikeout rate, less than 6% walk rate, sub 2 ERA, 0.85 whip. He's got one of the best CSWs in baseball. And if you've ever watched him pitch, it is so funky. He lines up on the left side of the mound and then cross body pitches all the way the other way across. Yeah. Like his right foot is on the left side of the mound and his left foot goes to the right side of the mound. And then he throws all the way across, and it just looks impossible to hit. He doesn't have incredible stuff, but with a sinker that is in the mid 90s and a slider that's induced swinging strikes at a near 20% rate, he's got all the tools and the role.
Yeah, he's not called Ryan Strikeouter, unfortunately, but he does have 97th percentile horizontal movement on that slider because of the way that he delivers this. He goes so cross body, and I'm actually really surprised that the sinker doesn't have a higher percentile horizontal movement. But it is pretty funny to go between the slider and the sinker inside of our repertoire page, and you'll see 15.7 movement for the horizontal break on the sinker and negative 15.6 on the slider. So that's 30 inches really of difference left and right on the sinker versus slider, which is why you have that massive 20% swing strike rate on the slider there and just 30% ICR on the sinker. It's actually really interesting to see the fastball that's thrown more than the slider have more weak contact than the slider. That is 30% for the sinker of ICR, and 34 for the slider is really cool. It is one thing I will mention: when you go really cross body, it is difficult to get into a rhythm and stay there. It's why Jake Arrieta was so good for that period, and then just all of a sudden, what happened? You know, why can't you do this? And it can be really hard to get back into it. Adam Ottavino is my favorite example of just every pitch he's trying to struggle to find that release point. It's really harder to get it when you're so cross body like that. But yeah, Ryan Walker works. And, I find it really difficult to select the right closers now in October when we did this draft in like October 10th or so. I essentially just put in spots. I'm like, cool. For me, it was 13th round, 15th round. Here are my closer spots. For you, totally understand. 11th round, Ryan Walker. We're going to go to the 12th round here. It's Nico Horner, and I'm sure you're going to regret this one because you went and had surgery after you made this pick.
That's not even why I regret it. I regret it because there's so many other players exactly like Nico Horner that lasted I think the whole draft, like they just never got taken.
Mm.
The draft strategy, I think the draft pool has changed so much in the past year with the changes to stolen bases and stuff
Yes.
that last year we hadn't even adjusted to it yet. Even though we had seen the increase in stolen bases, the fantasy community had not adjusted to how prevalent stolen bases are and how easy it is to find a guy that's going to steal 30 bases, hit less than 10 home runs, and not hurt you in batting average. I didn't realize at the time. What'd you say?
I said fewer than home runs, fewer than 10 home runs.
Thank you,
It's
thank
an
you.
integer, Jake.
I'm
If
sorry.
it's a tangible thing, you go 1 and 2, and you can hold it. It's fewer.
I have a degree in
If
literature.
it's a nebulous thing, it's intangible. Time. You can't really hold that. That's less. You have less
I'm going
time.
back to college. I'm getting
But
a
if you
graduate
got
degree.
fewer cars, but you got less traffic. Okay.
Okay. Locked in. I've got it locked in.
I saw it on ESPN. They're like, less or more than 10 wins for this team. I'm like, no, fewer. ESPN, come on.
You've got a calling in grammar, Nick.
We're writers. Dang it.
I have a degree in literature, so
standard.
I need to increase my standards.
You should be upset with me, Jake.
My standards, I should have fewer standards.
No, more standards.
Well, I was just practicing.
I know.
Anyway, there are so many batters now, and I realized this later in the draft when I was deciding between a set of guys, and I chose Nico Hoerner as the top one, and then the rest of the guys never got drafted. And I realized, oh shoot, I think I messed up. Now I know I'm either going to need to draft a second baseman earlier, or I need to get a different. Yeah, or find a different profile, because this profile is so prevalent now. It's so easy to find and draft late in the draft that I can find somebody else. But I think Nico Hoerner, I know he's injured. This is not going to be super consequential. Yeah. There was something about his ability to produce contact consistently. And I like that he bats at the top of the order every single day. His glove is going to keep him in the lineup. I just like Nico Hoerner in general. I've had him in my home league for the past couple of years, so I'm somewhat partial to him. But I regretted it almost immediately, and then have only increasingly regret that pick.
Who were the other guys on that list that you said never got drafted? Who you were considering?
They might have gotten drafted. I could be speaking anecdotally.
No, but who are the guys that were you thinking?
It was like Bryce Turang, Andres Jimenez.
Yeah, so he went the 15th round. Jimenez went in the 21st. But weighted massively. Yep.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. We're going to go to the 13th round. Great to see Max Bay, by the way, in the comments. Good to see you, man. Really nice to meet you in First Pitch, Arizona. Oh, yeah. And good luck with the Dodgers. Yeah, they really need you. Totally. 13th round is Peter Stairbanks.
Yes.
Closer for the Rays. You feel pretty good about this one. And remember, guys, Jake Crumpler writes reliever ranks and hosts In the Pen with Rick Graham. Knows a thing or two about relievers. So why Stairbanks?
We, and by we, I mean me and Rick on In the Pen, we have been huge stands of Pete Fairbanks for the past couple of years, mostly stemming from his 2022 when he just had a small sample induced incredible season. Literally a 40% strikeout minus walk rate that year. And the stuff that he was producing out of his arm was unreal. Like, no, it was unmatched. One of my favorite tweets I've ever tweeted was just stats about Pete Fairbanks from that year. And it was so good. I think I referenced that in like maybe 3 or 4 articles, because I was like, Pete Fairbanks is so good. Unfortunately, now we've sort of had to accept that I don't think the injuries are ever going to slow down. I think he's going to be dealing with injuries throughout his career. And last year, unfortunately, we saw a step back in production, directly resulting from a decrease in his fastball velocity. And it was down 2 miles per hour. This was a guy that was throwing 100 and then now is averaging 97. My hope is that he's still the closer. The Rays have used him as strictly as a closer, which is so weird, for the past 3 years, that I feel that if he's still on the team on opening day, he will be closing because they like him in that role. Whether or not he gets back to the peak that he showed a couple years ago, the likelihood of that is very small. But I do like the fact that, hey, maybe an off season where he's okay and not dealing with any injuries, maybe he can get back on track. Probably not from an injury standpoint, but I'm just hoping that the stuff can get back there. If he gets the velocity back, it's just such a clear issue that if he can fix that, I think he gets back on track. But he does have maybe the toughest competition with Edwin Uceta behind him.
So, I mean, he's not Peter Greatbanks. He's just Fairbanks. And that's all right. 14th round is Dylan Cruz for the Nationals, who I picked up in the Legacy League and really, really brought me to almost the finals. I think actually maybe, no, I lost barely in the semis. I think by like a terrible Sunday. It really made me sad in the PL Legacy League. But Dylan Cruz did everything he could for me, and you think he's just going to take off again next year?
I think I'm mostly betting just on prospect pedigree. I think his season last year was good, especially if you combine AA, AAA, and the majors. That's 16 home runs, 37 steals. And I think with a sub 20% strikeout rate, he's a guy that's going to produce batting averages north of 260. So that's already fine with me. That was as a 22-year-old in his second year in professional baseball, and a guy who was drafted second overall in the MLB draft. So clearly there's more for him to reach. I'm fine drafting him here, knowing that the possibility that I get somebody who bats 240 with 15 homers and 15 steals is probably the likeliest that I'm going to get. But at this point in the draft, having, locked down all but my last, or having locked down every single spot on my infield and outfield, I was going for upside, and Dylan Cruz is somebody with upside. I think just the fact that he's such a big prospect, he's going to get full playing time. I expect him to bat at the top of the order. The Nationals lineup's only going to get better, especially with James Wood there all year and CJ Abrams not staying out till 3 a.m. But I do think that Dylan Cruz is going to take a big step this year. And even if he doesn't, I still think he's going to be very reliable.
He could be Cherry Bomb Cruz. That might be it. Bomb Cruise. This is the joke I'm making here. Actor, Bomb Cruise. Yeah, you got there, Jake. I hope so. I hope it works out. I like this. I think by the time the 14th round comes around, especially for hitters, you're not really going to be getting guys that in your 12 teamers you feel as if 100% lock it in, set forget. There are a fair number of these younger, maybe post-hype guys. Jordan Walker, Jackson Holliday, who is your next pick, Dylan Cruz, Jason Dominguez, Pete Crow Armstrong, who I'm not saying necessarily post type of they've had their chance and completely missed it. More of we have been excited about them in the past, and this actually might be the opportunity for them to really come into the limelight. You have Evan Carter as well, Roman Anthony. I'm seeing here Christian Campbell, Chase DeLauder. A lot of these young hitters, Tyler Fitzgerald. It's interesting for me to see which one of these is going to hit, but this is really what you should be doing, because just like we do with pitchers, hitters also, you should have a couple that are like, all right, are these the guys that are like going to hit right in the beginning? And I remember Eno's presentation, I want to say from like 2021, something like that, where he was showing the graphs of sustainability in April and what you can really catch. And really when it comes to power numbers, if guys are showcasing that max EV, all of a sudden hitting new highs in April, it generally sticks. And you won't be able to pick them up after that. You got to go after like the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of these these hitters. And it's like the same way with hitters and pitchers in this way. So, right. Kyle Manzardo is another one in there too. I'm just looking at this board right now. There are a ton of these. Kobe Mayu, as Fast would say.
I was one. I was like, did he say it weird on purpose?
Kobe Mayu. That's a Baltimorean accent.
Gotcha.
Made for it. But yeah, Dylan Cruz is in there. So is Jackson Holliday. I'm just going to give one combined seal of approval for both of these, because this is generally the kind of stuff you go for. I think I prefer the Jackson Holliday one, especially because there was so much hype for Jackson Holliday. Number one inning practice. And is he actually qualified at second base? He is, right?
Oh, I don't know. He was second base.
He was inside of.
He only played second base last year. Yeah.
Did he? Okay. So then if that's the case, then this is your second base. Hello, what's going on? I got nothing else to do over here. I don't want to take Nico Horner. I want to take Jackson Holliday.
Yeah.
Tell us about Jackson Holliday and what you expect for 2024. Or actually 2025, rather.
Yes, because 2024, I can tell you what I expect.
Yeah, we already know that one.
Yes. I was actually really in on him last year just because, I don't know, I get as excited about it as about prospects as anybody else does. So I was bought into drafting him around 175 last year in my home league. Did not go well at all. But he's still so young. Last year he was 20. He's going to be 21 this year.
Oh man,
He's got the
done.
bloodlines.
It's over.
He's got the
Hang
bloodlines.
him up.
He still had success in AAA too after not finding success in the majors. 10 home runs, 8 steals, 21% walk rate, and a 22% strikeout rate. Ridiculous. And then I think if you look at his numbers after he got called back up on July 31st, after the trade deadline, he batted .218 with 5 homers and 4 steals. But most importantly, his strikeout rate was under 30%, which in the first few weeks that he was up, 50%. So there was clearly a step forward, an adjustment that he needed to make, that he did make. And I think just, having a lot of the pressure off from last year will make it easier for him to hit the ground running right away. I don't think we should change what we thought of Jackson Holliday going into last year. I don't think anything he did should change your opinion of him. Like, he's still got all of the same skills, all the same potential, the same floor. It's all still there. He could be in AAA all year long, but the ceiling is unmatched, and he plays second base.
Right. So I like this pick. You just want to see how this goes. I think he's going to make camp and make the team out of camp. So that's exactly the kind of upside play I'll be going for. 16th round, you had a high upside pitcher that is somewhat controversial. There are a lot of people that are really into this guy. Some people, maybe me, are out, and we're going to talk about him after this break. Who is that mystery pitcher? Well, I have him at 72 in my ranking, and I can see people putting him inside the top 50. That is Taj Bradley, who obviously has his moments and hints at 30% strikeouts. But for me, I don't want to deal with it. Do you have faith, Jake, that this is the year for Taj Bradley?
At this point in the draft, it's sort of the same way that I was drafting hitters. I wanted somebody with upside, and Taj Bradley was that. And, I don't inherently know what his floor is. He's pitched fine across the past 2 years. And it's like, you look at his walk rates and you say, okay, this is a guy that doesn't have terrible control, but that's not really what his numbers would suggest. I think a lot of that has to do with a lack of command, maybe not a lack of control. He's good at getting the ball in the zone, but not where he wants it to. Nonetheless, he pitches for the Rays, and his stuff is really good. He's not old either. He's going to be 24 next year. And and he's just got, I feel like the Rays are going to turn him into something. It's just like every time you see a pitcher go to the Rays, you're just like, they're going to turn him into an ace. And then when they turn him into an ace, we all act surprised every time. Oh my gosh, Shane McClanahan, he throws 100 miles per hour with incredible secondaries. How did they turn him into such
I have no idea.
Pitcher? Right? And it's like the same thing with, like, I don't know, Ryan Pepio or Glasnow or just anybody that's gone there, where it's like, you can see the stuff. The Rays are going to make it so that they can use that stuff to the best of their ability. Whether or not that happens with Taj Bradley, I think, is a flip of the coin, right? Either way, if they don't figure him out, I'm fine with a guy who sort of hurts me in ratios, but gets me a ton of strikeouts.
Yeah, I don't know if I am. I don't know. I think that Taj Bradley is a hipster, headache-inducing pitcher stifling the entire roster. That is, if you are familiar with the pitch list terms, we have Toby, Cherry Bomb, and Holly. And the problem I realized last year was that Cherry Bomb was applying to guys that you don't drop and guys that you do drop. And I needed to separate it. So I made Cherry Bomb the ones that you don't drop. That's like your Dylan Cease, your Hunter Green, your Jared Jones. And the ones that you do drop are hipsters, and they just drive you up the wall. And you just look at them and go, what am I supposed to do? And I think Taj Bradley's that guy. I think that I'd be so surprised if Taj Bradley convinced me by May 1st that he is here to stay.
What would he have to do?
Who he is. I don't know. That's the problem, is that I'm so, my trust is so severed with him that he has to pitch so in a way that he actually has true pitch separation. Like truly does not have any sort of shotgun blast of fastballs and splitters and cutters, completely removes any sort of blending and says, look, I know how to get my four seamer upstairs. I know how to get my cutter all over the plate as I want it to be. It was a low ICR last year on that pitch. And then the splitter is definitively down. He needs to do the Kodai Senga method, and he can't because the cutter is not as reliable and the fastball and splitter are not as reliable. So it's really frustrating to watch, and I I'm not going to tell you that he won't have great stretches. I have him ranked lower than I think the end of season rank will be, because I am also baking in my frustration,
Yeah,
my
like
anxiety, my
when he's going up
inability to
against,
make a decision on him. And I think there's
yeah,
extra value in that.
like he's going up against the Dodgers or something, and you're like, well, he just let up 7 runs against the Reds. Why would I trust him against the Dodgers? And he strikes out 10 in 6 innings.
And you go, all right, cool. I'm going to start him against the Pirates. And you go, whoops, and it's just, you don't know. You don't
Yeah,
know.
totally.
So it's up to you guys if you want to lean into that or not. I don't blame you either way. Connor Norby, another upside play here. Former Baltimore, now in Miami. And when that trade happened, Trevor Rogers for Connor Norby and another guy, I can't remember off the top of my head. I should, but I don't remember. They were like, these two prospects that we've heard of from Baltimore, just giving it for Trevor Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of commentary about it. At the end of the day, it was an understanding that Connor Norby wasn't really that great, and that Trevor Rogers was a decent chase, that maybe they can turn him around for the postseason run. They had extra depth and they needed it. But Connor Norby, you seem pretty high on this, that he actually was a mistake for the Orioles to let him up.
Not necessarily that. I think at this point in the draft, I was attempting to make up for the speed and average that I had drafted through the first 100 picks. And this was a very clear power producer. According to pitcherlist.com, he has a 14.8% barrel rate last year, which is in the 96th percentile.
Oh, isn't that so helpful to have the percentiles and league
I love
averages
the
right
percentiles.
underneath
That's
it?
my
Why
favorite
would you
part.
ever use any other site? I don't know, Jake. Told me
I
like
don't even know what you're
I
talking
used to
about.
use those other sites, and then I made a different one that actually helped me more to get the stats that I could give while doing a podcast so much faster.
That's right. That's right. And I've learned my lesson. But
Yeah.
with with Connor Norby, I mean, he strikes out way too much. I think I've made up for that by drafting Stephen Kwan and Christian Yelich and these average producers, that if I have a guy out there who's, not getting many hits, he's batting closer to 200 than you'd like. The power is so legit that I think as long as he's making contact enough to get to the power and playing every day, it's going to be fine. He's a guy that bats right-handed, and yet he was so good against both sides as well. I think so. I hope I'm going to double check that. I might just be saying things.
Well, we do that.
I'm
What
not.
you
He
can
was
do,
better against right-handers.
and are you using our game log, which is super quick for you to check splits? You can just go splits versus lefty versus lefties. Connor Norby had an 18% barrel rate, and against righties, he had a 13% barrel rate.
That's pretty good on both sides.
Yeah, the average, of course, was not very good.
No.
But ICR was actually pretty good. Endo contact was very good, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, just strikeouts.
It's just
Gotta
I'm just there
work on.
for the power, and he's going to
Yeah,
play every day.
yeah. There you go. All right. Just don't strike out, buddy. Contact has to get better for Connor Norby. We're gonna move forward to, I love this one, 18th round, Brandon Woodruff, phenomenal. I mean, it is again a testament to how late these guys went. Brandon Woodruff, Bobby Miller, right next to each other in the 18th round, and then you have Lucas Giolito in the 19th round. Those are 3 arms that I'm just all over for my drafts, because it's just, you'll know early it's either IL or they're killing it. I mean, Brandon Woodruff, you'll know soon. I'm worried a little
Yeah.
that because of the shoulder injury, he's not going to be as effective. So I have Lucas Giolito and Bobby Miller ahead. But I still love this. This actually is a seal of approval, because in 18th round, to get a binary choice of saying he's either going to be great for me or I drop him, and you'll know so soon, you'll know right away, is huge. I really cannot express this enough. For your 12 teamers, 18th round. And Brandon Woodruff, like, guys, he hasn't had a 110 whip as a starter for, I don't know, his rookie year. In 2019, I think it was. Which is crazy. It's bonkers. He's so good.
He is really good. Yeah, and I don't expect him to come back and be as good as he was before, but with my current rotation, I didn't feel like I needed to bet on that. With Bailey Ober as my 4, I was like, okay, I think I can survive with Brandon Woodruff as my 6th, even if he's not at his best. But I think one thing that really pushed me to favor him was the fact that he is going to hit free agency after this year. He does have a 2026 mutual option, but those are never exercised because you
Yeah.
need both sides to exercise them, and it never happens. So that means Brandon Woodruff is an impending free agent, which means two things. One, he's going to try really hard because he wants to get paid. And two, the Brewers are not going to be afraid to push him 180 innings.
I
Not that,
disagree with that last one, just because they'd want him to be effective through the year. And
yes.
you can't just be like, oh, I know that like it's not good to push you more. It's not just because they like for next year necessarily. It's for that year. They can't
Yeah.
push him, then he's just gonna get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be cautious about it, and they want him to be pitching throughout the entire year. So you might see some breaks here and there, some checks, some like skipping him this time around just to be cautious. But so you won't. I don't think you're going to see five straight. Every 5 days, Brandon Woodruff being out there. That's not likely what's going to happen this season. However, they are going to allow Brandon Woodruff to ramp in here, and then comfortably be pitching at least 90, and then let him dictate it to the Brewers for the most part. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this shouldn't be treated like a 140 situation, but it really shouldn't be treated like a 180, 200, probably something around 160, something like that. But you're absolutely right. Woodruff is going to work his butt off to prove himself and get paid in the next offseason. I hope it helps. I hope, honestly, he doesn't overdo it for that reason and push his shoulder and it's really bad.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we'll see. We'll know if the velocity is there. That's all you need to know. Like if he's sitting 96, not hitting, not touching, don't beat reporters. I swear, if you are a beat reporter listening to this right now, do not give me hitting or touching. That gives me nothing. I'm going to assume that he's 2 to 3 ticks underneath that. You have to give me average.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You have to give me average. You can say he was sitting this. However, it looked like he was at 70%, 80%. That's fine. Maybe add he hit this in there. Okay? But sitting is what we care about, guys. All right? Don't get fooled in spring training. But great pick there. You get a seal of approval. We've got 5 picks left here. And we're going to run through them pretty quickly. Ben Joyce throws super hard. I mean, there you go. Closer for the Angels. Shouldn't start. He shouldn't. Just let him close.
No. Why would he start?
That's a great. I love this pick. 19th round. It feels like he's the closer, right? I mean, it's just that you found a closer throws hard in the 19th round. Are you kidding me?
That's right.
That's another seal of approval. I'm like, oh my god. I remember you took. Actually, remember this. You took Ben Joyce. It's like, oh dang it. What do you know? He does reliever rings and in the pen. Oh my gosh. We've got Logan O'Hoppe. And why'd you go for Logan O'Hoppe? Obviously, you waited on catcher in this one. You decided to pass on the other guys early on. I don't know if that was a conscious decision. I hear this every year. Either you are a guy that's like, oh, I always wait on catcher, or oh no, I got to get the position filled. Seems like you're the waiting catcher kind of type. So why is it Logan O'Hoppe?
Yeah, I've definitely been an always waiting on catcher guy, and especially the past 2 years, because it feels like the pool for catchers has just gotten better. Like the fact that Sean Murphy,
they've got all of the ducks to put around your waist, and the floaties, and they've got the margs at the pool now. So the pool is just so good for catchers. It's the best. You know that inflatable duck? You know what I'm talking about, Steve the duck.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
the pool is cool.
Better. Yeah, it's so cool.
It has gotten so much better. Like, I don't know. It was the case last year too, but Logan O'Hoppe to me is somebody with a higher ceiling than a lot of the other guys. And if I consider what his floor, maybe not last year was, I wouldn't consider last year to be his floor, but he's a guy with such great power potential that you don't really find from catcher. So at this point, I think I was deciding between him and Sean Murphy. At that point, Travis d'Arnaud had yet to be signed by the Angels, which that's crazy now that I'm now considering the Angels catcher and the Braves catcher, and I was considering d'Arnaud, who then switched teams. But
were you also considering Alvarez?
Which one? Francisco?
Yeah, Mets. For d'Arnaud
yes.
too.
Yeah. So it was him and Real Muto as well. So I was considering all of those guys, and I think it was I can't remember what made me decide
Francisco
him.
Alvarez, I was saying for the Mets.
Yeah, I couldn't.
d'Arnaud.
I couldn't. Oh, there you go. Yeah. No, I was considering him. Wow, I was locked in on Travis d'Arnaud. But anyway, I think I liked Ohapi's success last year, Alvarez felt like his success was always fleeting. I think ultimately Alvarez is probably going to be a greater player at the end of his career, but in 2025, I feel like they're going to be really close, and there's something about the Angels and Logan. I don't know. There was something about it. It called to me.
Yeah, sure. I will say the correct pick was Wilson Contreras by
Yeah.
Shelly and Sarah Sanchez. He's going to be playing
Slipped
first
away.
base.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Plate appearances, guys. Wilson Contreras is the late catcher to get easily.
Yes.
I mean, it just like Salvador
Well,
Perez
he's going to
last year.
climb.
PLBot, by the way, was like the projections for us with Salvador Perez was like he should be like the catcher one. And everyone's like, this is ridiculous. I don't want Salvador. And we're like, no, you should do it. And I'm guaranteeing you that
I had him everywhere last year.
Next year. Yep, same here. We have 3 more here. Kubi Mayu on Baltimore, another Baltimore guy that you're signing up for, young and hoping that he breaks out next season.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this one's all just prospect pedigree. He clearly didn't do anything in the majors, but in the minors, 22 homers, batting 287 at the game's highest level, not called the major leagues. And he was only 22. I really like a lot of that. He didn't strike out too much either. He was down to 25%, which was a huge reduction over what he had done in previous years. So that suggests that he is improving as a player. He's growing as he gets older and more familiar with playing in professional baseball. On top of that, there's clear playing time for him in Baltimore. I mean, it's going to be tough to like eke out Jordan Westberg, but I think, are going to make things work so that Kubi Mayu can play. I wouldn't expect them to have him in the majors and play him like they did at the end of last year, where he was just on the bench, maybe only playing against left-handers. You don't mess around with a top 10 prospect like this and don't play him. I think if he's up, he's going to be playing every single day. And if he's not up, then he's in the minor leagues and he's not on my team.
Yeah, there you go. Great decision to make early on. Clark Schmidt at pick 22. I talked a lot about Clark Schmidt on the corner with Eric Samolsky just earlier today, I believe it was. And how do you feel about Clark Schmidt entering next year?
Good. I really appreciated how he improved through the year. And of course, reading the roundup was a great way to watch that unfold, because you kept emphasizing, oh, this is what he needs to do to get better. And then the next start, he would do it a little bit more. And he'd be like, yeah, he's getting there. And then it would just keep go more and more and more.
So exciting. Until
he just had a super long stretch of success that was directly linked to the things you were talking about.
Cutters, guys.
Exactly.
Oh, man. I know. I feel like every single pitcher, I'm like, oh, you know what he needs? He needs a cutter. Cutter's the answer. Oh, by the way, he should throw a cutter. Oh, a cutter? Yes, a cutter. But really, for Clark Schmidt, it was, you don't have anything to do with lefties. You're a sinker guy. If you're a sinker guy and you're struggling against the opposite hand batter, the answer is a cutter. If you have a bad four-seamer, that's it. And what do you know? Clark Schmidt had a phenomenal cutter. Eventually this year, he started throwing it more and leaning into it. It was his best pitch ultimately. It's good to see. I don't feel as confident as I do with, say, like the Zach Eflin types of every 6 innings, every 5 days, rather, he's going to go 6 innings. He's going to be efficient in starts to give him those wins that he should have with the Yankees. So there's still a little bit more polish, I think, that Clark Schmidt needs to get there, specifically with just locating all of his secondaries. When you're a secondary focused pitcher, it's generally harder to be efficient because you're not going to be able to be as precise in the zone as often. It's just how it is. So it's likely going to be a little rough around the edges, and the idea of like a 3.2 ERA with a 1.10 whip or something for Clark Schmidt is going to be really difficult to see over 150 plus innings. So that's why I'm kind of teetering between, like, do I really want Clark Schmidt for my teams out of the gate? Is he a Toby, or is he actually a Holly, right? Can he have that close 25% strikeout rate, or is he just a hipster then? Because is it like, I don't know if really is that good, right? Toby and versus Holly is more about, I know there's going to be fine enough ratios, I guess, but 20% K rate or 25%. While Clark Schmidt's like, are you going to do enough? And are the bad outings going to outweigh the good? But really good win chance. I mean, I think this is really hard to find often at the end of your drafts, are guys that have high win probabilities and generally don't hurt your team that much. That is Clark Schmidt. So definitely a great call here, 22nd round. Other ones that are going around that pick who might be available, Tobias Myers, who went a little bit later. You have Cody Bradford as well. Brandon Fought, kind of. I took Max Scherzer because what the heck? If he's pitching, like, great. I don't think you're going to dislike Max Scherzer. But yeah, there might be a few others that weren't drafted as well that would fit that mold. And your last pick, I kid you not, you sniped Sarah Sanchez and Shelly in the very last pick.
It was
Christopher
the
Morel.
third to last pick of the whole draft. I
Yeah.
was not expecting to snipe somebody. I had an inkling beforehand because I know Sarah's a Cubs fan, but
Yeah.
I said Christopher Morel's on the Rays. Why are you so upset? But yeah, I this was a clear upside pick, and I think this is one that is more secure than even Dylan Cruz or Jackson Holiday. I think that Morel's going to play every day for the Rays, and he's clearly not a high average guy, but the power is so legit. Last year was really weird. He lost a lot of power. It's like his barrel rate dropped 6% from the previous year, which really hurt him across the board. But that came with a 5% decrease in his strikeout rate, which hints at a higher batting average, and yet his batting average was 50 points lower than it was the previous season. So I think there's a lot of tricky stuff going on there. I think he's a guy with a lot of power. He's on the Rays, and so they'll know how to tap into that. I think the improvements in the strikeout department suggest a higher ceiling and a higher floor in the average department. And the cherry on top, where are the Rays going to play?
Probably not in the pitcher's park of Tampa Bay.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, that whole thing is another element. The one thing I think people are forgetting about Christopher is he's kind of like the clubhouse culture guy, like the Kevin Millar thing. If you guys have been watching the comeback, which is so good, I finished it today on Netflix. It's amazing. I really enjoyed it, and also I grew up as a Yankee fan. I endured that series and whatnot, but I'm a baseball fan. You guys know this, and watching that, I was just like, oh, this is so awesome. This is so good. And I felt happy, like I felt great for these guys and really did put them in this light of really feeling like the guys that finally won, the underdogs that really finally conquered their demons, And I understand that the Yankees are always just the villains in every story. Never are they the heroes unless it's just Yankee fandom. But like Kevin Millar, he's the clubhouse guy. Every team needs a Christopher to raise their morale.
Oh my gosh. It's time for you to go to bed.
It is. Delirious Nick hath arrived as we near 11 p.m. Eastern time. This is what I do for you guys. I am getting all of these podcasts out before I go to Hong Kong for 2 weeks, November 20th to December 3rd, and I'm not going to be able to do any of it. So I'm trying to get as much done as I can, and I apologize for the dearth of stuff that is arriving soon. But Jake Crumpler, a scale of 1 to 23, how would you rank your team?
I'm doing some quick math, subtracting the picks that I didn't like. I think I would probably take 5 points off of, so that's out of 23, give me an 18.
Oh, that's a solid
Thank
18.
you.
I love that. What strategies did you have entering this and that you have changed now that you've done it?
Second base, for sure.
Yep.
Definitely treating second base differently. I think also probably change some of my starting pitching strategy in terms of, I think, waiting more. Or
I agree with
maybe
that one.
because I think the waiting in this draft is likely what I would do in a regular draft, but I'm talking about waiting for the pitchers to go. Because in this draft, I waited for the first few pitchers to go and then took a pitcher. I think in a regular draft, I might still draft my first pitcher in the 4th round, but because it will be a different pool of drafters, they're likely to draft more pitchers. So my first one is probably not going to come until the 15th pitcher rather than the 6th pitcher.
Yeah.
But it may still be the 4th round. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And as far as other picks that you liked the most, and maybe if you got sniped or something along those lines, what would that pick be?
Yeah. Rick definitely sniped me a couple times.
On closers, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he got Andres Munoz in the 10th round. That was really good. He got AJ Puck in the 19th round, and he's his second half was absolutely. I'll let Rick talk about that when he comes
I
on.
told you that AJ Puck was going to be great this year, guys. I told you.
He's so good. He's so good. And I think he's going to close in Arizona. He's one of the best relievers in all of baseball. Just go look at his stats from like a couple weeks after he got returned to the bullpen, and then just projected out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
He had like a sub 0.5 ERA for 40 something innings with some of the best strikeout to walk numbers ever. So yeah, I'm really excited about him. And then I think James Wood is also one, and not because I felt like, oh man, I should have drafted him earlier when I was considering him. It's more just, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's got a lot of potential. He definitely has a lot of potential, but I really like to see what he did last year. And I'm excited to see what next steps he makes in a full season in major leagues.
Sure. Well, Jake, it is so lovely doing a podcast with you again. It's a fantastic tradition. It's great to see you.
You too.
I remind everybody all the stuff you're doing, because it's not just a pitcher list.
No, it's not. But you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. But at Pitcher List, I do In the Pen podcast every other week during the off season, every week during the regular season. We're recording one tomorrow, so check in on Friday for the next episode of In the Pen, episode 101. I also do the reliever ranks and other stuff throughout the year. And then over at Baseball HQ, I do playing time analysis for the Giants, A's, and Diamondbacks. And yeah, that's about it, I think.
All right. I obviously also follow Jay Crumpler on Blue Sky. Yes, we are there now as well. All of our staff is. So come on by to Blue Sky. It's wonderful there. And that is going to do it for this episode of On the Corner. On behalf of Jay Crumpler, my name is Nick Pollock. May your bounce be low and your strikeouts high.